Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel, where it's the Your Quick Guide episode for Game Week 27. We'll be discussing all the usual things, the captaincy debate, which is going to be a very exciting one this week, plus also the top 10 predicted point scorers of the game week. We've then got the upcoming fixture slides, so we'll be having a look at the upcoming Game Week 28 and Game Week 29, where we have a blank and double game week, so there's lots to discuss there too. So without any further ado, let's get into things. And for the captaincy, there were a lot of players I could have put in this slide this week. There are, of course, single game week players that are still good captain options this week. And there are other doublers as well you could consider, such as Solly March, who I couldn't quite manage to squeeze into this slide without making it look an absolute mess. So I've managed to narrow it down to 3 captain options. The single game week players, for reference, would be like Haaland or Rashford. Could still be captain picks for this week to consider. But I've narrowed it down to Kaoru Mitoma, Tony, and then McAllister. So 2 Brighton players and 1 Brentford forward for this game week to have a look at and compare using our captaincy matrix here. And the algorithm is predicting that the highest predicted point scorer of the 3 is going to be Ivan Toney. 9.7 projected points for him, with Mitoma in second and 8.6, and McAllister a bit behind on 7.6. And now it's worth taking into account that Game Week 23 was a very critical point for Brighton's shape and formation change. Some of McAllister's data that goes into this algorithm prediction will be from before when that switch was made. Game Week 23, where Lallana was injured and McAllister has moved into that number 10 role behind the forward, where he has looked more attacking at the moment, and Mitoma's data has actually looked worse than McAllister and March's for that record. In terms of live ownership, McAllister is obviously a much bigger differential if you want to go with him. The top 10k effective ownership of Mitoma and Toney is very high, roughly 50%. I expect Toney to be the most popular captain pick as well, so you can expect his effective ownership to be nearer, if not over, 100% for this game week. But in terms of the fixtures, we can have a look at both away fixtures for Toney, with 1 home fixture for Brighton out of the 2 Leeds, and Crystal Palace, which is the home fixture for them. And when we look at the expected goals conceded of the opponents, we can see that Toney actually has the marginally stronger fixtures. The teams he's going up against, Everton and Southampton, have poorer defences than Leeds and Crystal Palace, despite Southampton actually being the strongest defence. When you take into account home and away fixtures since Game Week 17, it's really neck and neck. There's not a lot at all to separate the fixtures. But it is worth noting that Brentford don't have a notoriously strong away record at all. Toney himself as an individual has pretty good going. He has like 4 goals in his last 4 games, I think, away from home. But Brentford don't get too many chances, so whether that kind of data is sustainable is one thing to consider. As far as the expected goals as a team overall, we can see Brighton are the stronger attack, 1.83 expected goals for them per 90, whereas Brentford on 1.55. So going to get less chances to score, but you would expect the points to be shared a lot more in that Brighton side than you could expect with Brentford. I think Toney's the main source of points in that Brentford team. You can see he's on penalties as well, whereas with Brighton, you've got Ferguson who can come in, you've got Mitoma, McAllister and March, obviously, all sharing points for the amount of goals they're going to get. And then expected FPL points for the individual, Toney is ahead on that, 6.42 for him per 90 since the restart of FPL, 5.52 for Mitoma, 5.09 for McAllister, but as noted, that is taking into account game weeks prior to when the switch was made. If you do want to go ahead and check out Game Week 23 onwards and how that data is different, you can do so by using the OptaStats tool over on the Fantasy Football Fix website. Link is down to that in the description. So you can go and check that out and how that's different, but it is worth noting, of course, it's a pretty small sample size. Game Week 23 wasn't that long ago. We've not got many weeks to register the data, but McAllister's is a lot stronger, and of course, as mentioned before, he is on penalties. One thing worth noting with Solly March, who isn't in this graphic, is that a lot of the teams that Brighton go up against, Leeds and Crystal Palace, I saw very interestingly concede a lot of chances down their left-hand flank, so Solly March's side. So he's looking likely to get quite a lot of chances. Whether he'll be creating them or actually scoring them, I suppose, is up to what your interpretation of Brighton has been. But Mitoma's data has always been a little bit poorer than Solly March's. That's why a lot of popular content creators go for him. Mitoma's really that eye test player that if you watch Brighton, you can see he's going to be clinical with the chances he gets, even if he's getting fewer of them. So personally, who would I captain? I suppose to summarise, I would go for Ivan Toney as things stand. Despite Brentford's slightly poorer away record and lower expected goals as a team, I do think he is just, that talisman. He's obviously on penalties as well, so going for him, I think, is the strongest and probably safest option this week. But Matoma would probably be my second choice, maybe then March and McAllister, really neck and neck, as it was when picking a Brighton midfielder. It is still so hard to choose between them if you want to go for a captaincy option as well. So that's the summary there, a bit longer on the captain debate this week than usual, but moving into the predicted points, we can see quite a lot of the players we just mentioned in these top 10 here. Raya is the one that actually tops it over Ivan Toney, which I was very surprised of, so the algorithm clearly predicting very good chances of clean sheets in both those games for Brentford, which could be something to consider when making any defensive switches this week. We've then got March actually ahead of Matoma on predicted points, so 9.1 over Matoma's 8.6, so although I think personally Matoma is the stronger option, Solly March is actually predicted by the algorithm to score higher, and that's consistent with what I said about his data being better than Matoma's in general. Estupiñán on 8.2 there, tied with Rico Henry of Brentford, two very popular defenders to bring in on a Game Week 26 wildcard. If you're wildcarding this week or looking for a defender, those two are ones to go for. Sanchez on 8.1 obviously is out of favour now, so don't take any notice of this. His expected minutes are through the floor. Jason Steele is the one you want, basically. 3.9 million for him. De Zerbi's come out and said that he favours his playing out from the back. I don't know whether there's been something behind the scenes, which just means Sanchez has been dropped. But for now, from what we can see, Steele looks likely to start the next amount of games. So don't be bringing in Sanchez, and I'd probably recommend transferring him out if you're not happy with your other keeper to be able to cover off the bench. Then we've got me on 7.9, Pinnock on 7.6 after his goal in Game Week 26, and McAllister down there on 7.6 at the bottom as well. So that wraps up the top 10 predicted points. Some quite surprising results in there this week. Of course, take no notice of the Sanchez pick there. But we'll have a look at the upcoming fixtures now and what's to come over the next couple of game weeks. We're looking all the way to Game Week 30. We know, of course, in Game Week 27, the state of things, Brentford and Brighton right at the top there, and that's bringing them up to the top overall over the next 4 game weeks as well. Brentford at the top for both attacking and defensive fixture difficulty with their 2 doubles in the next 4 game weeks. They also, of course, have a fixture in Game Week 28 where we're going to see a lot of teams blank, such as Brighton, who you can see don't have a fixture in that game week, but are still in second for attacking fixture difficulty. One thing worth noting, if you're not playing the free hit in Game Week 28, which looks a strong strategy, I'd recommend trying to avoid playing it if possible, now that teams such as Spurs, Brentford, who you can see here, Leicester, don't have blanks that were expected. I think it's much more easy to navigate. So don't be bringing in too many Brighton players if you can't afford to bench them next week, is what I'd suggest. And that's why Brentford players are probably the priority over bringing in players from Brighton. We've then got Chelsea in third for attacking fixture difficulty, coming off the back of a nice victory in the Champions League to Borussia Dortmund. They've got that double in Game Week 29 as well, of course, and a fixture in Game Week 28 that looks very favourable at home to Everton. Aston Villa are in there as well, so Ollie Watkins can still provide a very nice forward option. The only problem is squeezing him into our sides with Haaland, Kane and Toney in the majority of teams at the moment. I think Haaland to Aston Villa striker Ollie Watkins could be a very popular transfer in Game Week 28, where Man City are one of the teams that don't have a fixture, as mentioned before. Newcastle are then the only one making up the rest of the top 5 in terms of attacking fixture difficulty. I wouldn't be looking to load up on them at the moment. I think the Newcastle defence is probably a stronger area to invest in. We've then got Brentford, as mentioned, at the top for the defensive fixture difficulty as well. So Rico Henry would be my favourite pick, but Pinnock or me, as seen, can get attacking returns as well very easily. We've then got Leicester at the top, so keeping Danny Ward. If you've got him as your backup keeper, to Sanchez, who I mentioned is out of favour, then you've got a pretty good backup keeper there. He plays in Game Week 28 with that fixture against Brentford, and then he's got a double in Game Week 29 too. So Ward looks decent cover on your bench. Then got Leeds, who I'd probably avoid for now, and Aston Villa, maybe go for Matty Cash. He looks the most nailed fullback, with left-back being a place to avoid in that Aston Villa team right now, with Alex Moreno and Luca Dean struggling for the starting position. Matty Cash grabbed an assist in Game Week 26 with that own goal by Anderson of Crystal Palace. So yeah, he's getting forward quite a lot under this Emery, and the underlying data hasn't looked great so far, and it's not going to look great for that assist as well, because it doesn't register quite right. But Matty Cash does look pretty good on the eye test, and as seen in Game Week 26, he can get you attacking returns. But right now, we're of course prioritising bringing in any Brentford defensive assets or Brighton if you've got the cover for Game Week 28. And then finally, Chelsea making up the rest of the top 5 for defensive fixture difficulty. So Kepa equally in goal, just like Danny Ward, looks very decent cover if you've got Sanchez in your team right now. Again, a nice Game Week 28 fixture at home to Everton and then a double in 29 too. So you're not really missing out on too much besides the extra fixture in Game Week 27. But that's going to wrap up your quick guide video for Game Week 27. Let me know what you thought of it down below in the comments. Give me some feedback on the pacing and everything like that. I appreciate I could probably talk quite fast at times and waffle on, but hopefully you got all that and it was helpful for your Game Week 27 preparations. I'll see you very soon for Eddie versus the Algorithm, which will be live tomorrow. Until then, I'll catch you later. Goodbye.